Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman, live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about something very, very interesting, important, and I think that is the news of the day, and will continue to be so tomorrow even. That is about the US presidential election. As we all know that Trump and Biden are contesting for this election, and in most of the states they are competing neck to neck, and it is also believed that this is going to be a very close contest. But as we all know that the popular vote doesn't matter, the actual votes, the college electoral votes, I mean these are the actual votes which are counted. Even in the previous election, if you remember, when the Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton lost the election, but when you look at the popular number of votes, she had more of them, at least 3 million more. So you can well imagine the importance of the state-wise calculation. Now that is also very important. Now when you talk about these swing states, or you talk about states like Georgia, Indiana, New Carolina for that matter, and even New York, pretty interesting results are expected from those. Well, when you talk about the West Coast primarily, California, Oregon, etc., these were always the Democratic supporters, and they have the history to win from those. But let's see what different happens this time. Because in the previous election, I remember everybody was thinking that Hillary Clinton is going to be the first US female president, but it did not happen that way. It was Mr. Trump, out of nowhere, who appeared and became the president of the United States of America. Now he is competing for a second term. Joe Biden, who was previously the vice president with Barack Obama, is now competing for the presidential election, and the vice president is Kamala Harris, whereas with Donald Trump, it's Mr. The gentleman competing with him is Mr. Mike Pence, who was also the vice president in the current government, or the previous, as you may like. Now this is very interesting. A lot of people are talking about the law and order situation that can get bad. People are talking about the election spending by both the parties. They have also exceeded their limits. People are also talking about the number of people who will be voting today. Because when you look at the early voting in the US election, it has topped 100 million. That is around 10 crore. So you can well imagine that most of the votes have been already in the ballot box. But today was again a very important day. A lot of people were out expecting that their favorite candidate should win. But let's see what happens. Things are pretty interesting, and as the time will pass, you'll get to know what exactly is going to happen. It's a matter of 24 hours maximum. Now to talk about that, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us Air Vice Marshal retired Faiz Amir Saab, who's a senior analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And we have also been joined in by Malik Mujahid Saab, who's the founding member of PAC, that is the Political Action Committee, Muslim Democrats. He's going to join us from United States of America. And we'll be also talking to Azaz Chaudhry Saab, who is the former Foreign Secretary and has also served as an ambassador in the United States of America, and Begum Abida Hussain Saiba, former minister and also a former ambassador in the United States of America. So if I may ask you this question, because if you remember exactly almost 4 years ago, we had a program right in this studio, and we were just, having a joke that it seems that the US is pregnant, and should we expect a baby girl or a baby boy? So most of these analysts, including yourself, I think, we all opted for the baby boy, a baby girl actually. But sir, it was Mr. Trump who came out as a conqueror, as somebody, who we never thought that, this man is going to be the president, but he is. And he served for 4 years, and even now, there is a difference of opinion. A lot of people believe that it could be Biden's turn. But sir, we cannot rule out that Trump might be elected for a second term. Your take.
When you use might be elected, then you're doubtful. So I think all polls till the time the polling started have tilted more in favor of Biden. CNN poll of polls, it gave about 10% lead to Biden. Economists gave I think major lead to Biden in their survey that they held just recently. So If Trump loses Florida and Pennsylvania, I think he's gone. And Florida is going to announce the results on the same night of the election. But the odd thing about this time is, as we have been talking about, that as you said, over 100 million people have voted, which is close to 75% of the votes that were polled last time.
Yeah.
So one thing is certain, that the polling is going to be much more than the last time, because a sizable number of people will come out this time on 3rd of November.
So better turnout, what is that supposed to mean?
Better turnout would go primarily in favor of Democrats, because more Democrats traditionally have opted to vote early, or by the postal ballot or by email. So if there are 100 million votes that have been polled, then there is going to be substantial advantage to Mr. Biden. That is one thing. And the day of the election, probably the Republicans are going to turn out in large numbers, and you might see Mr. Trump leading in certain till the elections are announced, the results announced this evening. But this is going to be a very painful process for not only the Americans but for the entire world, because the final results are going to be tallied by somewhere in mid-December. So every day people will be talking about new results coming in, because as certain states do not allow polling, counting of the postal ballots till the time polling is over.
Yeah.
So the polling would start probably of the postal ballots, which is more cumbersome, which is more requires more scrutiny. So they will start to poll the results will come out very gradually, state by state. So that is going to create a lot of uncertainty, and probably might give an excuse and chance to Mr. Trump to go to court and take these matters to court.
I mean, you never know, sir. It seems like, because this seems like a very close contest. Let's see who wins. But sir, we have been joined in by Azad Chaudhry Saab, the former Secretary for Foreign Affairs, also the former Ambassador to the United States of America. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Ji, assalamu alaikum, Faisal. How are you?
I'm pretty good, sir. I hope you are feeling well as well, sir. Thank you so much for joining us and talking to PTV World. Azad Chaudhry Saab, simple, straightforward question. Your take on today's voting and the election results, sir. It seems that this is going to be a very close contest, sir.
I think the election this time is very different from many elections in the past, in the sense that it might change the direction in which United States has been moving in the last 4 years. I think it's an election that will determine whether United States will continue to move on the path of isolationism, or whether it will vote for globalism. It also means that whether United States will stay disengaged from multilateralism, or whether it will be ready to assume a more global leadership. These are the two differences that, in my view, are important. The third difference, which is also important, is that we see the trends of narrow nationalism, xenophobia, Islamophobia gain strength during Trump years in the last 4 years. And if Biden were to come, I do see that these trends, though they will still continue because that's what's happening in the West, but they will be of far lower intensity.
That's also another very important factor, and that is about the number of people who have turned out to vote. And earlier, they have also said that 100 million votes have already been there, and that is around 25%, 75% of the number of votes in the previous election. Now, looking at the youngsters voting, looking at the level of persuasion that was behind the campaign of Donald Trump, that has also persuaded a lot of white men as well as women to vote for him. Now, sir, you believe that there could be some sort of a change in some states because of that, especially in the Midwest, or you believe that it is going to be somewhat the same, what we had earlier seen 4 years ago?
I honestly don't have that magic wand in my hand to know how it will pan out, but my sense is that it will be a close contest. By my second sense is that Biden will win this time. Now again, it is my only an educated guess rather than because nobody can really predict how Americans would actually come out to vote. But what is more important for me and you to understand is that what will happen to relations that the United States will have with our country, the approach it will take towards South Asia, approach it will take towards issues that are of importance to us. I think that's the key question. Who will steer it in what direction? My sense is that if Biden makes it on issues that are important to Pakistan, we'll probably have slightly more openings than if Trump stays in power.
All right. Now, sir, Joe Biden seems to be a very orthodox kind of a politician, and since he's been in politics for about almost 45, 50 years, whereas when you look at Donald Trump, he's pretty new, and this was his first tenure as a president, as somebody who has held the position of the President of the United States of America for 4 years. I'm sure he must have learned so much in those 4 years. Now, if you remember, sir, when he took charge during his first term, I mean, so many people resigned, and later on, I mean, every third day there was a resignation, either from the National Security Advisor or from the Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense. I mean, there was this continuous musical chair going on, sir. Do you believe that this time it is going to be more steady and he exactly knows what he needs to do in the next 4 years if Trump wins? And if Joe Biden wins, then obviously, sir, we have to look into so many other factors that that is regarding Afghanistan situation, Pak-India relationship, Pakistan and Iran relationship, the JCPOA factor, this circling of China, and so much more. I mean, do you think things would change, or the basic alignment is the same when it comes to these two gentlemen, sir?
My sense is that Donald Trump will behave more or less the same way if he comes back to power. That's his nature, and that's his style to keep others unnerved on, and therefore that style may not change much. Biden is a known commodity because he was vice president to President Obama, so we know him well. He has been making views known to us and the world on how he's going to look at different regions, including South Asia. What I do see is that much of the approach that both Biden and Trump will follow towards South Asia will not change much. I don't see much change. One, because both perceive China to be the main challenge for the United States. Both also see India as the ally for the U.S. to counterbalance China. It's the only change that I see in this case is that Biden might be more open to criticizing the Modi regime for the gross human rights violations that it is being committing in Kashmir as well as in rest of the world, rest of India. On Afghanistan, I see that again both want to probably pull out of Afghanistan. Both would probably like to defer to the administration's or the establishment's view that perhaps they should leave behind certain advisors and intelligence and some kind of mechanism to counter terrorism. But there is an opening. There's an opening that I see if Biden returns to power, because Donald Trump did not want to have any structured dialogue with Pakistan, whereas Joe Biden has been, as you know, as part of Obama administration, very forthcoming. They had a strategic dialogue running with Pakistan. So my sense is that I do see an opening of bilateral relations if Biden returns to power.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your comments. Chaudhary Saab. Now, sir, Chelsea says that if Biden comes back, then there is a high probability of a dialogue between Pakistan and India, whereas in the case of Trump winning, it might remain the same.
Well, Faisal, if you see historically, the foreign policy issues have been dealt by the President of the United States all the time. All the presidents, they held the foreign policy. Now this time, since Mr. Biden, who is in his late 70s and very close to probably 78, 79, I do not expect him to be very, very aggressive, proactive in anything else but only the limited foreign policy issues. When you go to foreign policy issues, globally there are State Department issues and Pentagon issues. So you divide them like that. Pentagon issues are use of force under the garb of counterterrorism, and the Pentagon issue is China. China has both the connotations, but I would say it has more towards the Pentagon issue because they need an enemy for the military industrial complex to flourish and to progress. So I think there won't be any change if Mr. Biden comes back in the Pentagon supported issues, that is China as an enemy and the use of force by the Pentagon wherever they want to. The other issues are more of a State Department issues. Afghanistan is also a Pentagon issue. Mr. Trump said that probably all the forces will be back by Christmas. So, whereas Mr. Biden wanted to keep about a small number, about 2,500 people still for special ops in Afghanistan. So that would be a major hurdle because Taliban have agreed to total withdrawal, have agreed to talk to the Afghan government after the total withdrawal as one of the key reasons. So if Mr. Biden is thinking of retaining certain portion, probably the February agreement would have to be renegotiated for the Taliban to agree for a small portion.
And there could be a possible delay in the peace process.
So that is going to cause. So maybe Mr. Trump preempts that and recalls, even if he loses, he might recall the entire U.S. contingent from Afghanistan, so that Mr. Biden does not go back on the February agreement. As far as India is concerned, Democrats have historically been pro-India and not so much pro-Pakistan. Republicans have been had a lenient view towards Pakistan historically than the Democrats. So I don't think that there will be any room, any space given to Pakistan when Mr. Joe Biden comes in, because India is part of the Pentagon issue, and that is China. So probably the Pentagon would like this relationship to keep progressing further, because it has many advantages for China, for USA. Recently they signed the BECA agreement, and that probably was the last of the agreements to bring them as close allies. And what does it actually mean? All these agreements that India has signed of the logistics and the communication side, they actually mean that now India can use the US technology.
That is something that is going to change the balance of power in the region, sir.
Yes. India presently imports 70% of its weapons and arms from Russia. So in that, majority of those arms coming from Russia, probably these agreements with USA mean less. So it means over a period of time, the USA will push India to start importing more of its technology.
And they also plan to have their indigenous weapons as well, and the Americans have really said that we'll support you in that also. Sir, if you allow me, we've also been joined in by Malik Mujahid Saab, who's the founding member of PAC. Assalamu alaikum, Malik Saab.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking the time out and talking to CTV World now. Since we are talking about this very interesting US election, and I'm sure you must be observing it very closely and monitoring the minute details also. Your take, sir, what's happening? And by the way, can you also tell us which state are you in?
I'm in Illinois, which is a state where Chicago is based. but I have network throughout the
The
country.
hometown of Barack Obama.
Pardon me?
I'm saying the hometown of Barack Obama.
Actually, we are in the same neighborhood.
That's very interesting. So yes, sir, go on, please.
I would say that at this moment, decision is that we'll have a leadership which is going to be more predictable for Americans as well as people around the world? Or is it going to be the type of haphazard style of leadership in which no one can understand where America will be next day? America is in deep difficulties as the rest of the world because of the pandemic and economic recessions. So no matter whether Biden wins or Trump wins, it will be a challenge. But when there is a predictability, you can plan better. You can rely on science better. You can take thoughtful steps. So world will have a good news hopefully tonight or maybe in a month, depending how many votes are counted, how many lawsuits are there. I hope there are not going to be any fights on these streets, but guns are being purchased, not by traditional white folks, but blacks and browns are purchasing guns. Actually, gun purchase is up 80%,
Yes,
and it is going to. And the good guns or popular guns are flying off the shelves like the toilet papers were flying off the shelves 6 months ago in the pandemic. So we are bracing for peace. We are teaching people how to mediate, how to de-accelerate. But fear, hate, and anger, which is in this country rising before Trump came into power, he took advantage of that. And that is not going to subside anytime soon. So we have not only pandemic, economic crisis, but the crisis of confidence in the leadership to mediate, dispute, and treat all people equally. We don't expect to treat people equally because if he is defined by his words are divisive.
Now,
And
just a couple of areas I want you to throw light on. Since you are from Chicago, Illinois, and now this area is particularly known for riots in general, sir, and a lot of killings also take place in this particular part of the world. Now, sir, what I saw on TV yesterday on CNN actually, that people were practically trying to save their businesses by putting on shutters and wooden boards and whatnot. And they expect that there could be a possible law and order situation in a day or two maybe. So that fear is there. You've said that people have bought so many guns, and that's been going on even from the time of Corona when it started. Secondly, sir, then a lot of militia groups have also been formed, white militia groups, black militia groups. Now that is also something which we have never seen before. Then the threat of Trump that if he loses with a small margin, he's not going to admit it. I mean, there are multiple factions. Let's talk about that first, and then I'll put another question, sir, regarding the non-white votes. Please go ahead.
Well, businesses shuttering themselves. No business around me shuttered, but probably you do not know that White House, all around White House, a wall is being built which is not climbable. So people are taking precautions. But Chicago has a historic problem because of mobs used to be based here. In front of my office in downtown Chicago, we have buses going around before the pandemic, which will show the places of mobs and things like that. By the way, the last house of mob guy was owned later on by Brother Muhammad Ali, who was my friend. So he owned the Al Capone's house. So that's historical thing. But crime is there in America, there is no question about it. Actually, sometimes we have more people getting killed in Chicago than there are killed in Pakistan altogether. So crimes is part of American life, but also is law and order. We expect there going to be, there is already called demonstration on November 4th, November 6th, November 7th. The 4 day worth of calls I already know, which are there. So this is going to be contentious, but my hope is that somebody wins with such a powerful majority that rioting could be controlled and people will try to calm each other down. We have been involved, Muslim community, and working with the President Carter Center, have organized 3 trainings on how peaceful people of faith, Muslims, Christians, and others can mediate the conflict today and onward. I hope we are successful in that.
So another quick comment on the perception. Basically, when Trump was contesting last time, a lot of people who are non-whites, Hispanics, Muslims, blacks, we all thought that they will most likely totally be voting for the other party. But a lot of votes went towards Trump also, sir. Now, what is the situation like these days? Because after this corona issue, and especially after this Black Lives Matter, that campaign, sir, how's the situation like?
Well, Muslims, last time 9% Muslim voted for Trump. This time, according to survey, 13% people are planning to vote or have already voted in the Muslim community. So yes, in America, there are going to be minorities who have difference of opinion, but overwhelming majority of Muslims, blacks, and Latinos are going to vote for Biden. It is very clear. I live, 95% of my neighbors are black. There is no question about voting for Trump here.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Now, Ayub Saab, 9% Muslims voted for Trump last time, 13% this time. Has the population increased or their mindset has changed?
No, there would be probably different angles to look at it. Probably the well-off community amongst the Muslims, the business people amongst the Muslims probably would vote more for Trump than towards Biden, because Biden has promised to increase the corporate taxes up to 28% and maximum 39.5%.
Yeah.
So that would be a great change, and that probably would influence certain people, some corporate sector trades, to probably make a more informed choice about Trump. We were talking about the foreign aspect,
Yeah.
foreign policy aspect. I think the most important decision and most far-reaching decision would be whether Trump wins or Biden, would be around Iran. Because Iran, if Biden wins, then definitely we're going to see some cooling down of relationship between MBS of Saudi Arabia and White House. And that, in my fear, is that would make Israel more important, because in that case, Saudi Arabia would try to make up for their lost relationship with White House through Israel. And same would be done probably by the UAE.
Historically, Saudi Arabia has always enjoyed a great relationship with America.
But after the Adnan Khashoggi incident, probably the Democrats had taken more strong view of that incident in Istanbul. So I believe that the relationship will not be as strong or as warm as it was with Trump.
The current term, yeah.
So in either way, Israel is going to get more importance in Middle East and more say in the Middle Eastern issues. Whether if Biden wins, then probably some of the countries that have shown inclination to recognize Israel, as those who have recognized Israel, they would be probably now influencing American decision making through Israel. So that would be a very different kind of a Middle East after the
future of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Now, when sir, if you allow me, we have just been joined in by Begum Abdul Hussain Saiba. I'll just also put a question to her regarding the US elections. Assalamu alaikum ji.
Assalamu alaikum ji.
Assalamu alaikum ji. I hope you're good and doing well, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, good to have you in the show. Ma'am, I'm sure you must be watching the television and what's going on in the US election currently. So what's your take, ma'am, since you've also served as an ambassador there in United States of America. Now, Trump was one of its kind, and whatever has happened, I mean, few good things, few bad things. But a lot of people are expecting a little too much from Mr. Joe Biden if he comes into power. Do you think now, let's start off from the foreign policy, will it change towards South Asia? Let's start off from there.
I don't think there'll be any change, whether it's Joe Biden who's elected president or whether Donald Trump retains the position. I think the U.S. policy towards South Asia would remain the same.
It would remain the same. So no major change is anticipated from your side. Ma'am, secondly,
I don't think so.
Also tell us regarding Afghan situation, because when we look at Trump, I mean, he means business and he really wants the withdrawal of US forces from that area. Whereas when you look at Mr. Joe Biden, he seems to be a very orthodox, typical American politician who is going to view it from so many various different angles, the Afghan situation. And the pullout might not take place as soon as we anticipate. Correct?
I think that President Biden would, with regard to Afghanistan, would be very cautious, and he would not, I don't think, rush into the situation one way or the other. So I would say that he would try and take a stock of the situation before he takes any decision.
All right, sir. Ma'am, another thing which we had never witnessed was about the law and order situation. A lot of people expect, just in case if Trump loses, that there could be some protests, or maybe there could be some violence, or maybe there could be, some sort of another problem, that could arise from certain states. How do you see that aspect? Because that has never been talked about before, it has never happened before.
I'm very used to voting regularly after every 4 years, and I don't think there'll be any problems.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much for your comments, ma'am. Thank you so much. Moving on to Yusuf, talking about the foreign policy. Ma'am believes that there is not going to be any major difference as far as the foreign policy is concerned. But yes, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, there could be a possible delay in the withdrawal of the troops.
Look, there are very visible differences in the stance of both the leaders. Although American elections have never been about foreign policy, they've always been internal issues, and they've always been more focusing on the economy of the America itself. But probably with Mr. Biden winning, you're going to see a recourse to multilateralism. Because Mr. President Trump pulled out of WHO, pulled out of the United Nations Human Rights Commission, pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Pact, pulled out of the Paris Agreement. So all these multilateral relationships that the previous regimes had built up, Mr. Trump pulled out all of those. But Mr. Biden is going to go back, and he said in those many words that he's going to join the Paris Agreement, he's going to join probably WHO, and he's going to definitely be more supportive of the green energy. And what you're going to see is probably a lot of almost 2 trillion investment in next 5 to 10 years in the green energy. So there is going to be a lot of change, and the most profound change, as I was talking about Iran, would be a decision. If it is multilateralism, the multilateralism will take Mr. Biden back to NATO and Europe. And there could be an agreement on renegotiations of the JCPOA agreement with Iran, and that would be started through Europe. So Europe might be the front face of United Nations foreign policy as far as Iran is concerned, and that is going to bring tremendous change in the regional geopolitics, and that, if it happens, probably would create new opportunities as well as new challenges. Because if Iran is allowed to get back into the JCPOA and gets back on renegotiated terms, but if a pact takes place, then probably Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and UAE would be looking for new partnerships to strengthen their position. Because
what choice do they have, sir?
Well, a recourse to Pakistan, a stronger recourse to Pakistan probably would be one of the choices. because Mr. Biden is definitely not going to favor the war in Yemen, although it is also already facing some resistance in the U.S. The political leadership. But I think there's definitely going to be a quick end. America would seek a quick end to Yemen war, and that and JCPOA together, I think, is going to change the regional geopolitics, and that might bring certain opportunities for us and certain challenges for us in the shape of a resurgent Iran, because we might have certain more issues at the Iran-Pak border. But that is not going to be as grave as it is going to be
the past.
Yeah, or as it is going to be the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So that's going to be major
I mean, that is
impact.
going to be a huge challenge for the next president, if there is a change. Mujahid Sahab, now if you remember, when Barack Obama was contesting, he did very openly speak about closing down of Guantanamo Bay. He spoke about the Kashmir resolution. I remember he spoke about so many other global issues, especially the Palestinian and the Israeli issue. Guantanamo Bay was never closer because obviously there was a lot of pressure from the American establishment. When you talk about Pakistan, Afghanistan and India, it was just, considered as AFPAC. India was out of it. And then we also, in fact, heard that nothing happened regarding Kashmir, despite the fact that Mr. Joe Biden did visit Pakistan and on great terms. He was so happy to be here, and on the way back I still remember that little interview he gave. I mean, he was really praising the efforts of Pakistani, and he said that he loved Pakistani people and the hospitality and everything. At the same time, what do you see, sir, the commitments made by the contestants? Will they be able to deliver those, or again there's going to be some sort of an internal pressure, I mean, where they'll be stuck, whether you talk about the issue of Jerusalem, Kashmir, Islamophobia for that matter, and so much more? Your take, sir.
As far as Islamophobia is concerned, there are 120 laws presented in 34 American states. Republicans have presented those. They got 14 of those passed to become a law. All of those resolutions were opposed by Democrats. In the House of Representatives, Trump brought the Muslim ban. Democrats passed the resolution condemning and asking that Muslim ban be repealed. I see, in terms of Islamophobia, Biden will be on the right side of the history. As far as relations between Pakistan and India is concerned, being a political scientist and working on different think tanks on foreign policy, my opinion is slightly different. Yes, it is true that Democratic Party has been historically close to India. I'm an India expert. My book are taught on India in American universities. That has changed substantially because of some very unique reasoning. President Trump is a hotelier, and 70% of small hotels in America are controlled by Gujarati Indians. And that's why he had extraordinary relationship. All the Republicans, not a single Republican will say a word. I have a lobbying firm working on Muslim causes in America, and when I am in DC and I meet chairman of Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate and here and there, Republicans will not be willing to utter a word. While on the Democratic side, they have been calling hearing and all that. So I would say three things. Number one, Pakistan will have fair opportunity in the next administration if Biden is there, because he will be more predictable. Whatever communication will take place, agreement and all that will be possible. Second thing is that if Pakistani minorities in Washington, D.C., Pakistani minorities who are in America or from Pakistan, they speak up for Pakistan. Because when I'm in DC in State Department meetings or here and there, I see these are the minorities Pakistanis who are speaking against Pakistan. I don't know who is behind them and whatever. Once I saw Mrs. Fahani claiming, just sitting next to me, that 28% of Hindus in Pakistan have disappeared. And there used to be 28% Hindus in Pakistan. So these are the type of things which are going to be there. So this is the second thing. If Pakistani minorities speak for Pakistan, Pakistan will have a better chance in America in the Biden administration. The third thing which I would like to share with you is extremely important. Where are Pakistani Americans? How are they organized? I see Indian Americans, they are organized. I received in last 3 years about 40 invitations to visit India, mostly by, Hindus and this and that. If Pakistani Americans are better organized, I think they will have fair hearing. India has never been as much under pressure as it has been in America in last 1.5 years. On Kashmir issue, on Indian Muslim issue, mainstream media in my 40 years in America and in my scholarship in India, I have never seen so much written criticizing India. This is the opportunity of Pakistan. If Kashmir issues, as far as Kashmir issue is concerned, Kashmiris for the first time are being heard in America. What is Pakistan doing to support those Kashmiris? I think you control your destiny. Neither Biden does nor Trump does.
Well, sir, that's a very important point, sir. Because Kashmir issue is so important now. Bajaj Sahib is saying this is the first time, and I think the credit goes to the Prime Minister Imran Khan that he has raised this issue on almost every forum, especially in UNGA, that people got to know about the issue. And they also got to know about the human rights violence. They also got to know what India is doing there, the kind of atrocities the Indian military is committing there. And they seem to be worried. Now, if the case has been heard for the first time, so that means that's a very good sign. Because that is the major, and I would say the heaviest dispute between the two nuclear states. Now, over here, sir, do you believe that if Biden comes to power, he might be able to, though that historically Democrats have always supported the Indians, but even now there is a thin probability, there's a fine line we need to understand, sir. And there could be two factors. One could be regarding the resumption of a dialogue between Pakistan and India. Maybe the Americans can always pressurize, they have in the past also. And secondly, sir, the relationship between the two countries when it comes to some sort of a change, because everybody fears Trump for some reason.
Throughout the election campaign, Pakistan was mentioned once, and that too for its relationship with China. So the centrality of China to American foreign policy and defense policy negates whatever we have been saying about Kashmir, because now China is also a party to Kashmir issue.
Yeah.
So for that reason, that reason alone, probably the US would favor India, and that is where the danger lies, because now the dispute, whereas we have been able to bring out the Kashmir issue to the world, India has been more forceful bringing out the Chinese threat to India. And highlighted,
and they're really capitalizing on that very well.
So I think it's being a realist world, and China would stay the focus point for the American foreign policy and defense policy, and India will remain their closest ally. With having signed all those agreements, I think expecting, yes, we could have bilateral relationship with America. It could be probably improve slightly beyond being transactional, because after all, there still lies the danger of being held responsible for Afghan US failures in Afghanistan. So whatever happens in Afghanistan will be the whipping boy for the US foreign policy. So I see not much warming of a relationship between Pakistan and United States. It would probably stay neutral, and that alone would be good for us.
But this term is going to be really important for the global affairs and for the global politics and also. That is for sure.
Yes, Mr. Trump, if he comes back, how much would he listen to his own people in taking foreign policy decisions? What
No, if he comes back, he's going to come back with all the
with
guns
all the
blazing.
vengeance, with all the vengeance. And
Yeah.
if he doesn't come back, would he let Mr. Biden take over so easily? I think
I
let's wait
I
for
think the
the
24 hours are really important in
let's
this thing.
wait for the exit polls
Yep.
first, and then let's wait for 20th January.
Yeah, let's
But
see, sir.
yes, that's,
Everything
that's
is
a-
going to be clear, but anyway, since we are running out of time, AVM Saab, it was a pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you very
so
much.
much for your input. And thank you so much, Malik Mujahid Saab, for your input as well. And we'll definitely keep having a word with you over the Skype in the coming days as well. And that's all we have for this hour. Things are pretty interesting. Let's see who wins, but this is going to be a close contest. And I believe that one of the highest turnout in the US presidential election history is going to be this one. Because currently, if you look at the numbers, I mean, a lot of people really want change. They want a better America. Whether the slogan that can win the election for Trump, and that is about that let's make America great again. Well, if they want to make America great again, means that currently they believe that America is not the number one power or the best sole controller at the moment. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, and let's see what happens in this election. By that time, we'll be very clear. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.